What's up, guys? You know what night it is? Wednesday night, off-centered with Dustin, the artist formerly known as Personal Finance Dad, currently known as Sports Card Dad, and the guy that wore a very crazy-looking hip hoodie from what was that? Assassin's Creed 2 weeks ago,
I wore
and
that
now
on a video the other day, and someone actually in the comments was like, "What the hell are you wearing in this video?" I got a couple of comments like that.
kudos, because now you have one color, one primary color. I see like a little yellow or red. That's at what, Barcelona? This is a
Yeah,
soccer.
yeah.
Okay,
It's a Barcelona hoodie.
far more appropriate for this versus your
Yeah, I
"Do
was
you
a little
think you
bit
can
too fashion
dance?"
forward last time. It was like I was Kanye in the future or something. I needed to probably like scale it back a little bit.
I'm like,
It was too much.
Dustin, who are you mocking? Are you mocking someone by wearing that? Oh, no, you actually intended to wear that?
Yeah, the thing is, it's so comfortable. Honestly, it's like wearing a quilt or so. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah,
It's
you
good.
mean, yeah, but quilts are also gaudy because, like, grandma knits a quilt and there's like 15 different colored patches on there. And so you never wear it in public. Ironically, that looks more comfortable than what you were wearing last time.
Yeah, I mean, this is fine too. This will work. This will work.
So what's
So,
up, man?
oh man, it's been kind of the usual deal. I'm trying to think of when did we talk last? I went to Mexico for 4 days. Did we talk about this?
I don't think so.
Okay, so yeah, not this past weekend, but the weekend prior, went to Mexico for 4 days. Did the all-inclusive thing with Kim, with my wife, and that's honestly, if you have kids, or even if you don't have any kids, I guess, but if you have kids, just getting away for 4 or 5 days at an all-inclusive where you don't lift a finger, that's the way to go. That is really the way to go. So yeah, we did Mexico. That was good, and then we had my whole family in town on my dad's side, my mom's side, for my little niece's 1 year birthday party this past weekend. So it's been wild. It's been busy. How about
Um,
you? I'm sure it's probably a similar story for you.
well, I do know
Kids
what it's like.
everywhere.
I had this one house plant, and I'm like, God, what a burden this house plant is. If I just want to go on vacation to Mexico and not have to worry about watering this one house plant. So I'm in the same boat as you. But besides that, dating life's been pretty good. So
I went on a
Halloween,
bike ride the other day and I meditated for 12 hours. So it's pretty similar. It was busy. It's a pretty busy weekend.
I'm like a cat, man. I sleep and then I just meditate. I go eat. I have been riding my bike a lot more. I do love riding my bike. I haven't done that in a while. Actually, remember, if you've been on this journey in cards and following us for the last couple of years, I got in that horrible bike accident. Remember, in
Made me think
August of
about that
2020.
actually. When I said the bike thing, yeah, it made me think about that.
Yeah,
I
in
was going
fact,
to bring it up, but
it's still a bit red here, so you still see it's a little bit red. But yeah, that was a pretty brutal bike accident, and now
how
I'm
long did
back.
you cry thinking about your modeling career being over? When you're looking at your face, were you like, this is it? It's done.
Well, you know what I should have done? I should have been like, there's a little gravel on the road from construction. I should just try and sue the city of LA for that being there, and then just saying I was a supermodel making thousands of dollars a day, and you ruined my career. But anyway,
Thousands of dollars a year and it's gone now.
$400 every 9 weeks down the drain. Anyway, let's say hi to some of you guys in here. Helix
Yeah.
fan, great to see you, Brian. Ryan is in the house. Brett, great to see you as well. Yeah, the big news is Tom Brady and Giselle, and that kind of bums me out as well. I really wanted I wanted them to last because they were a beautiful couple, and they seem like genuinely good people and a good couple together. Cards to Card, great to see you. Sal Stands 303 in the house as well. Hobby Champs is here. Philly Joe, great to see you. Always in the Friday Card Life Power Hour, so great to see you on here as well. Go Phils. I was going to say Phillies, then I stopped and said Phils, and it sounded weird. Go Phillies. A Collector's Dream, what's up, man? Global Sports Card Investor. All the usuals in the house. Great to see you. There's Mike C. Always waiting for Mike to pop up. CV in the house as well. Okay, so we don't have too much news, but we do have the Buccaneers. We do have the Saints. We do have some football.
Well, and I did see too. So everyone's been talking about, Tom Brady chose football over his family and this and that. I put it in actually one of my videos this past week, but basically, like, people act like they know what the hell is going on in a person's relationship. I mean, honestly, like, from the outside looking in, maybe you can say like, oh, he picked football, but there's probably 10 different reasons why they ended up splitting, that nobody has any clue about. So it's just kind of funny when I hear stuff like that. And then I did see whether he's just saying it to be public or whatever, but I saw like a recent statement that he said it's very amicable. So, I
Mhm.
mean, and when you have kids involved, it can very easily be not amicable. I can speak from experience on that front. And I've been through a divorce. So, I mean, if they are able to kind of, especially with the amount of money and all the rest of it that they're having to divvy up now, hopefully, as much as I'm, not a Bucks fan and not hoping that he's on point and hoping that he sucks for the rest of the season, I still kind of, I think that's like such a shallow, take is like he chose football over his entire family. That's, here's the other part too, is this isn't like some random guy that has played for a couple years in the NFL. This is the greatest of all time. So if you think about it from his perspective, you've got one life and, yes, he's already accomplished all the things and whatever, but I don't really blame him if he still can play at a high level. It's the thing that he loves to do the most. Maybe here's another thing to think about. Maybe he feels like he like thought about it and was like, what if this relationship ends in a couple years anyway, because we have a dozen other problems. And I went ahead and retired when I didn't want to. And now I'm like, man, I wish I had played on. So there's a lot to think about. There's a lot that goes into it. So I don't know. I saw a couple of the takes. Of course, people are going to talk, but it's just kind of dumb, I think.
Well, yeah, and I actually have heard from someone in the hobby that is connected to a lot of athletes that this has been brewing for a long time. It just came to a head right now. But again, this is their personal life, and whatever we perceive, like same as you. Like I look at you, and or someone looks at your channel or looks at my channel, and they can guess what we're about and wrap a story around whatever we say, we don't say, whatever. But no one knows all the intricacies, and so
The
they
complexities of Brad and Dustin.
yeah,
Yeah, actually, in Brad's case, there's not a lot of complexity, but you're right. That's a good point. You think that people, but we don't know each other intimately like that. It is what it is.
And there's no point of even talking about it. But maybe this is the turning point for the Bucks, because the Bucks need a turning point. Saints, aside from the last game, have looked horrible this season, and we got like 3 or 4 teams that are having good records, and then the rest of the league is like 4-3, 3-4, 3-5, 4-5.
I know that's the thing that kind of makes it fun, I guess, because the Saints are so bad, but the division is so awful that at least it's like, hey, if we just win the division, then we're in. That's all it takes.
Yeah. And it really is a matter of who can be healthy and hot late. That's it. Yeah. That's why I don't care about any of the stuff. I look at what the Jets. Oh, the Jets are doing good. And the Vikings. And I'm like, yeah, that's great for now. But it doesn't matter until it's week 14. In week 14, who's healthy and who's trending, and then where are the records at? Or do they have a chance to actually make it into the playoffs if you're healthy and you're streaking? That's it. Other sports. Have you watched any of the World Series?
I watched a little bit of game 1. Actually, it's funny. I turned it off because I thought that the Astros were going to win game 1. We were doing other things, and it was like, all right, well, the Astros are going to win game 1, and then the Phillies snuck in and took game 1. Then the Astros won 2, and then I think the Phillies blew them out in week 3. Is that game on tonight? Game 4?
I think it's on. I want to say it's on right now. Is that correct? Yeah,
it probably is. Yeah,
it's 0-0 end of 3. That's what my ESPN app says. So we got a lot of sports going on. We got World Series. We got football. We got basketball starting. Yeah. What's your take so far on the NBA? Anything stand out to you?
I just want to see. I don't know. I'm pulling for Luka. Like there's so much around LeBron and Steph and kind of these guys that have just been around, and I just don't care about those guys. I'll be honest. Like I'm ready for like that young crop of players. Kevin Durant, Steve Nash got fired as the coach. I feel kind of, and look, I don't watch Nets games. I don't know if Steve Nash is a terrible coach, but hell, if you're trying to coach Durant and Kyrie Irving, I would rather poke myself in the eyeball. But I mean, well, I'd rather take the millions of dollars a year to coach those idiots. But it's just like, I'm so tired of the regular talking points. I'm just ready for kind of that, like, go ahead and retire. Like, let's move on from the old guard and get in with a lot of this new talent. So I like watching, Luka and LaMelo and Anthony Edwards. I want to see these guys do some stuff. Booker and, all these guys.
So here's my thing is I don't watch sports. I watch my teams, right? I could watch NFL more games just because I love football a lot more, but I really am watching my team, the Bucks, right? So if their Bucks aren't doing well, if it's just a dreadful year, like everything before Tom Brady, I'm not really tied to the Bucks if there's not really hope. And with the Magic, I haven't had hope since Dwight Howard. It was like 2010, 2011, Dwight Howard, when he was the next Shaquille O'Neal and all that. And even though the Magic still suck, I did see that their rookie, Paulo Banchero.
I think they actually have a formidable young lineup. Like they've got like 3 bigs, I think, that are actually pretty good. And again, I'm not the guy, I'm not the basketball guy that's following all the lineups and everything, but I've heard that they have a good young team. So I don't know.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where I'm just looking at the ESPN app, and this is not sponsored by the ESPN app. It's just the app I've had forever. And
I'm sure everybody's shocked that it's not.
We have not worked our way up to ESPN, the app, sponsoring us. But yeah, I was just checking it out because even though their record's bad, it looks like this young player is quite good and promising. So maybe next year or the year after, Magic will be formidable. For now, I'm good taking my evening walks and bike rides and meditations. And then the Lightning.
Basketball cards are really interesting. Kind of, I'll wrap in some card talk here because
we're going to go to cards in a second too.
But really, what's interesting is a lot of the basketball stuff has taken a back seat. I mean, even if you're looking at like the Steph Curry and LeBron, if we're looking at just like the top of the food chain, guys in the league, a lot of their stuff is down with a lot of and even the high, whether it be high end, mid end, whatever we're talking about. And then you have a bunch of young talent. I don't know. It's just kind of at some point, some of this young talent is going to ascend, and you have Giannis, who's already won a title, but I mean, like, it'll be very interesting to see what happens in a few years. We're going through obviously economic stuff right now. And I'm not saying like 2020 type explosion hobby stuff, but just like regular hobby stuff. Like right now everything's kind of depressed and like correcting and whatever, but I think I'm just curious to kind of see what a lot of these guys that are 22 to 26, once they get kind of in that sweet spot of like 27 to 31, where guys are winning titles, is really, that's usually what some guys win titles really young, but a lot of times they're in the league 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Michael Jordan was 27 or 28 when he won his first title. I think he was 27. So everyone's always ragging on these young players, but they're just really young. So I don't know, I think it's going to be interesting next year too. Can't remember the guy's name, but there's a guy coming out that's going to have massive hype. He's 7'4", but he can shoot. He can do, like, the guy plays like he's like 6'2", like as far as the way that he moves and everything, but he's 7'4".
Like Kevin Durant, but taller.
Exactly. And that's what that people have kind of nicknamed him as, as like the taller Kevin Durant. Of course, the concern is this guy's like tall and lanky, injuries, can he stay healthy? But Durant has stayed relatively healthy. So obviously, can the guy stay healthy? That's going to be the big thing. But I guess my point is there will be a bunch of hype around that guy next year coming, for NBA.
Yeah. Another thing that's interesting too is when we were talking about Tom Brady playing this long is all these players, I feel like they could play so much longer because they know how to take care of their bodies so much better. They're not just eating KFC and, putting ice on their knee, but now there's like this red light therapy and there's all these crazy technologies that's making these players last a lot longer. So maybe,
correcting. I just saw the comment.
To be fair, that's actually an aspect of my life that has turned around. So just saying, this is the guy right here.
Yep.
Kumbaya, Victor Kumbaya.
Yep.
Wimbawe.
Yeah, he's legit. I'm just going on mute because my dog is barking for a second, but keep talking.
Okay, so there was a good question about grading. I know that was one of the points of the week that is newsworthy, which is PSA dropping their bulk service to $15, right? 10 card minimum, $15 per card, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay. So here's the question: global sports card investors, do you think with all the grading companies dropping their prices, it'll get more people back into the flipping game? And my initial response is no, because I don't think the flipping, well, yeah, no, the original response is it's what's the card going to be worth after it gets back? Is that going to be enough of a margin? And is there going to be enough volatility? I don't know about flipping game, but I do see guys like Austin Carlson, check out Carlson Cards, who just love buying raw cards and then sending it along, like loves the process of grading and then selling the cards when they come in. And it's not the flipping game like what we saw in 2020, 2021, where it's more of go to shows, buy this, sell this for whatever margin, and a lot of this was graded already. But if the price is from 20 down to 15, is that big enough for the flipping part of the market to really blossom? I don't know if that's big enough. Like, I don't think it matters from 20 to 15.
So the thing that's kind of interesting, I see like CV Sports Cards said, not if grading trashy base cards, but the real truth is with the new product, a lot of these parallels are kind of base cards. Like I don't think that people are going to grade a lot of like base Prism rookies like they did going back a few years, but there's so many different color variations that are not numbered. Some are numbered, some are not numbered. Even numbered stuff, certain numbered stuff is going to be fairly irrelevant, I think, just because there's so many different variations for certain players. So yeah, I don't think, even if grading's $10, even if PSA goes to $10, I still don't think that means people send in hordes of base Prism rookie cards, but I do think they send in, a lot of the orange patch, for a guy, for Victor Wamba numbered out of 99. There's going to be a zillion of those. Trevor Lawrence has like 5,000 different rookie cards or something. Like, we're in kind of this like overprinting age where it won't be the trashy base cards as CV Sports Cards says. Like, if we're going, I don't think that it will be, but it'll be everything else. There's so many different options for guys. I think it's gonna be wild. So the flip game, I think, to what you're saying, Brad, is the grading will be cheap enough to grade stuff. Will there be buyers on the back end for it? Like, and it's also probably going to be like, you buy a card for $20, whatever, $50, you grade it for 10, and then you sell it for 90. It's not going to be like you sell it for 300.
And my point is the difference between 20 a card and even 10 a card is that's a $10 per card difference. Does that mean that all of a sudden there's a huge influx of flippers because now it's 20 to 10? If it's 50 to 15, 50 to 10, that's a big difference. That's like a big number. But from $20, if it goes down to 10, does that really change things? And I think, I don't know. I don't see it really changing the psychology, because I think if you're doing the grading right now, you're just doing the math. Okay, these cards are worth it, and these base cards aren't. Maybe these silvers are, and these cards are. And then when it goes down to 10, okay, a couple more cards are worth it at the $10 per card. I would say a bigger part of it is what's the turnaround time for PSA that you know of? If on the economy, do you know what, like, roughly, if you send it in, what it would be?
Well, I think the goal and I think they're fine, is right at about 3 to 4 months right now. Like right now, that $15 price point, it's the target is 120 calendar days, which is 4 months. But I have seen people that have said like, hey, I've gotten stuff back earlier than that. So I think it probably,
And what's the fastest? About 30 days for bulk economy of a grading company?
I think, well, depending on which company.
Yeah.
SGC has lightning fast turnaround time.
So what's SGC right now? Is it about 30 days?
SGC is, if you go through bulk, it's $18, but it's literally like a 5 to 7 day turnaround. It's a lightning fast turnaround.
Okay. So I would say if PSA gets to that turnaround speed, that's when I think the flipping aspect could really open up, because then it's like, whoa, I can get this today and in a week and a half time get it back and move it. Because if the margins aren't that big, but the time you can get it back is very fast, then you could just do more volume, and maybe you get a card, before a player can screw up, or you get in the off season and then there's rumors of him being traded. Because remember, with the whole delay, the issue was that you would miss your window to sell. You would buy the card when they were injured, and then you would hope they would come back when they were healthy. But by the time the card came back, they were healthy, then they got injured again, then they got traded, and then they got released, and then now they're picked up by a new team, and now they're injured, and now you got your card back. And you're like, okay, so that did not work out. So I think the turnaround time would have a bigger impact than dropping it another couple dollars.
Yeah, I don't know if PSA will get to a week turnaround time or 10 days, but I do think they'll consistently, because of the capacity that they have now, I think they'll consistently get to 30 days, 30 to 45-day turnaround on bulk. Unless, look, maybe they keep lowering their price and they just get massive influx. I mean, there's still, last month they graded 1 million cards, and then the other companies are grading a substantial amount of cards too. So I would be interested in seeing kind of like, how does that compare to January 2021? I meant to go back to Ryan at GemRate and ask him, because that's when he started his data. Because, just to kind of get an idea of how that sits historically, it's still a hell of a lot of cards, so people are still grading. It's just a matter of, is that stuff just sitting? Is it sitting? Like, are they selling it? Are they able to move it? What stuff? Obviously, there's probably pockets where they're able to move certain things really nicely, and other things, maybe it takes a little bit longer. It's tricky.
So this is a good question here, or this is the idea of seeing the cards go down to $10 to $12. You mentioned something like that in your
I said the
video.
same thing in my video. This isn't like rocket science. Like, we all have the same take pretty much. Neo said 10 to 12 bucks by January. It's going to happen that they're going to get down to 10 bucks because PSA has 120 graders. SGC, Pete told us in our interview, SGC has about 20 graders. PSA has over 100 graders.
Which is crazy. That's still not that much. When you think of the biggest grading company and all these numbers, I'm like, wow, I'm thinking of these offices filled with graders, and but 120 as the biggest company by far. I'm like, all right, well, that's what, a couple of rooms in a floor of an office building. Like, it might be one floor, but it's not like, holy crap, this is a skyscraper in Times Square. It's not. It's just, okay, 120 graders. But from PSA standpoint, do you drop the prices down so that you keep the volume up, or are you just trying to stranglehold everyone else because you're already the leader in terms of perception and resale value? That's the thing that PSA has, is they don't have the turnaround time, but they have the resale value and the fact that no one has to question if PSA is reputable or not.
Well, the other part of it is about 30% of their business is TCG, which is, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Magic the Gathering. Pokemon printed something like, the Pokemon company printed 9 billion cards between 2021 and 2022 in that 1 year only. And there is huge demand for graded Magic, Pokemon, all that stuff. I actually think that it's going to end up being 50% of PSA's business, which a lot of the people in the chat, like, that watch our channel, like, I don't dabble in the Pokemon game outside of my youngest son that likes those cards. But, that's probably the biggest opportunity in grading outside of sports cards, for sure. Obviously, sports cards is always going to have its thing. But if you're a grading company and you're looking for growth, you've got all the, the Prism and all the stuff that's coming out and the Topps Chrome, but TCG is just, it's massive, and there's huge demand for it globally to get graded. So PSA, that's not really talked about very much, but that's
okay. Well, okay, so here's my whole thing. I'm curious, is PSA's strategy to lower prices in order to expand market share, or is it really just to put a stranglehold on other competitors? As in they could downsize, like, 120. Look, if they go from 120 down to 80 graders, that's laying off 40 people. Elon Musk was talking about laying off 3,000 people off of Twitter.
Oh, I'm sure that they've also got, I think they have an office in Japan. They are probably looking at it as, we have demand out there that we're not meeting because we're just not getting these cards. We're not like, we didn't have the capacity and the infrastructure in place to be able to handle. And they might still not. They're still kind of building up to that. No, I think that they'll drop the price down. They want to get all, as many cards as possible and grade them. But that's like any business. I think look at all the demand they've had. They had a 2-year wait at their building with 600,000 cards in one day. So they're thinking like, we've got a ton of demand that we need to meet.
So I look at it as, this is our opportunity to not just grade more cards and meet demand. This is our opportunity to become undisputed champion. As in, like, we're in the lead, we've been in the lead, but this is the time that, you know, all the other grading companies can offer is a different slab and quicker turnaround time. They cannot offer resale value or price.
Yeah, but so I think that on the sports card side, you're also just going to have people that are brand loyal at this point too. Like SGC did vintage. They had a ton of vintage fans before they ever really made strides in the modern, ultra modern space, which happened just over the last few years. And then really before that, they were mainly a vintage shop. And Beckett, they've always had market share because of Jim Beckett and the name, and then they really kind of blew that over the last couple of years.
But here's the thing, though, is vintage might all be graded, mostly, right? Most of vintage is probably graded.
No, not even close.
So you like worth grading. So you think there's a good amount of vintage worth grading?
Doesn't matter because there's vintage where the people just want a 1. So it's not like is it worth grading because I can get an 8? It's like a Bart Starr rookie card or whatever for certain vintage. Like there's people that would want it in a 2 or a 3. So it doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, I don't think that's the majority of the population. There's pockets for sure. But if I'm going forward, I'm thinking cards are going to be produced every year. Vintage is not going to be produced. There's going to be less vintage graded every year based on the fact that those cards aren't produced anymore.
But that's what I mean. But no, I think that every company, if we're talking about the 4, we're talking about Beckett, CSG, whatever, SGC, PSA, they're all going to have brand loyalists to them. It's not just about resale value or, whatever. That's not the only game in town. That is for a lot of people. That is, and I'm not obviously, that's important, but there's going to be people that love CSG slabs and they're going to go with CSG because they're brand loyal to them. That's just the way that it is, I think. So, and PSA is fine with that. PSA's already got the majority of the market share. I don't think that they need to put everybody out of business. They might, but
but they might want to. They not want to, but it's like, what else are you going to offer?
Well, it's a business. So, obviously that's the goal of the business. The goal of the business is to thrive.
Do your best. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, Beckett could have said, look, we're not here to put other people out of business. We're just going to do our thing. And then by default, from not being aggressive in the way that the hobby and the collectors wanted, they kind of fell by the wayside over the last couple of years. So if PSA does not put their foot down on the pedal and say, now we can reduce price, now we have the highest resale value. And then what if they say, by the way, now we're at we have such an efficient infrastructure and system, 30-day turnaround, even with bulk submissions or something. Now all of a sudden it'd be like, holy crap, you're really making an offer that's hard to top. I mean, and besides the color of the slab and that kind of thing.
Here's the other part too, is that people, so as far as new, and doesn't matter what cards we're talking about here, but if it's the right card, it doesn't matter which slab it's sitting in out of those 4 companies. So if it's a Logo Man or if it's a, 1 of 1 or whatever, that's great if it's sitting in a PSA slab, but it's not like if it's sitting in a CSG or a Beckett slab or whatever, that it's going to go for pennies. It's still going to go for a lot. So it's kind of like I think people are going to be buying more of the card, not necessarily the slab, depending on the situation as well over time.
Okay.
The PSA, so Ziggy's talking about the PSA set registry. It's strong for longtime collectors, but I haven't met any 20-year-olds that care about the PSA set registry. So if we're looking at kind of the next generation, yeah, maybe there's some that know about it and get into it because they're introduced to it. It's strong for longtime collectors, but eventually you're going to have a new set of collectors that take the place of those folks. So yeah, and yes, at that price point, they will be sending in their vintage commons. That's true.
The other thing you mentioned in that video too was rare edition. So just summarize your point with rare edition, because they do have a great looking slab, but I think I've seen a few in person, but it is a slab that you send a card to get graded. It's not a case for display purposes, correct?
Oh, so in my video today, I was talking about we met them at Mint Collective, and I was talking to them about, hey, forget about the grading part. Why don't you guys just come out with like a PC slab, for people that just want to protect a card? Because that's literally like, can withstand a nuclear blast. You could like go swimming with it in the ocean and it's totally fine, but it's not something that you crack open to resubmit. Like if you don't get the grade you want there, I don't know what you would do to crack it open to resubmit it to somewhere else. I mean, it's definitely a PC type. To me, that's kind of if you're going to use them, it would be like, I've got this awesome card. I'm not really into the grading companies, but I want it protected. This would be the thing that can do that for you. But the price point, it's at, I looked at it today, unless I'm missing something, it was $49, and
Okay.
that's a lot.
And that's to grade the card for it to go into the slab. Oh, that's just to go into the case.
Strictly PC. I don't know if they authenticate it, like not grade it and authenticate it. I'm not sure, but it's just basically for it to go into their slab.
Okay. So the reason I want to ask is because a while ago, I got this gift from Card K's. This is not a sponsor either, but I thought this was a cool invention where it's a case for an already graded card, but you do see the PSA label. How I know it's kind of blurry with what it's doing, but there we go. That's not bad.
So it kind of protects the slab.
Yeah, complete. I mean, and it has like a little thing to put it on. But I thought, well, this is great because now you're not competing with these grading companies. Now you're selling this beautiful display piece that you can display your cards in a new way, yet work with all the grading companies instead of competing with them. Because why would you send a card to a grading company and spend all this money, and then all of a sudden you get a 7.5 or an 8 or a 9 or whatever, or even a 10, but no one really cares. Like no one can actually trust what that grade means. So yeah, to me, I just thought that was a good business idea.
Yes, Slab Mags sent me a care package. I'm going to make a video and kind of share their stuff. So shout out on Instagram at Slab Mags. Kind of a cool thing. And again, it's kind of the protective outside cases, that go onto the slabs, different, variety of those. Kind of cool.
So okay. Yeah, and I've seen those before. I think the Great Curator has them on his.
There's a few different companies doing it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I love this stuff because it's cool because now that you're saying, hey, there's better ways to display our cards.
Especially too, if you have like, like for me, I don't have a bunch of expensive cards, but I have a handful of cards where it's like, it would be kind of nice to have some added protection on this one, not just the slab, or like, I don't want the slab to get cracked or something. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I don't have 50 cards that I need to do that with, but yeah.
One thing here that Ed mentions is what's holding him back to send his cards to PSA is the $199 declared value. I mean, isn't that just to ensure that you're not sending in a really high-end card trying to sneak it by the system at like a lower price?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of like it's like the insurance part in combination with it's a profit center, for PSA. So they want a piece of that action. If you send in a card and it grades, it's $1 million card, they want a piece of that action because it's sitting in their case and it's adding that value or whatever. I've always said though, with the upcharge, it's got to be hard as hell to do our upcharges right now with like the volatility with card prices coming down, these high-end cards. Like what if the last sales from 2021, on some of these like rare cards, and you're like, okay, this card is, sold for 50 grand. Am I paying the upcharge on 50 grand when it's like, if I sold it right now, it'd be 10, like that's the stuff I think is really tricky. So I don't know how they're doing it. I made a video about the price change. And there was a lot of comments about upcharges. A lot of people were saying that they weren't getting upcharged, on cards that were like $300-$400 because you got the $199 limit or whatever. Some people said I did get charged at $300, so I guess it's case by case, but again, it's kind of one of those things. You choose to use these grading companies, and that's, PSA's got the highest resale. That's why people go to PSA. I don't think a lot of them go to PSA because they're in love with the look of the slab or any of that. It's because it's the resale value is the main driver. So if that's the case, then you have to put up with whatever that is. That's the deal.
Yeah. Here's a good comment. There is a flip side though. They are okay with determining an upcharge, but when they lose a card, they only give you declared value. I did not know that.
Yeah, I had a friend that got smoked on that. What they're talking about here, where yeah, I'm not going to get into all the details, but it wasn't good.
Wait, so hold on a second. So if you send a card and you say it's worth, let's say $100, and they say no, it's worth $500, but they lose it or whatever,
it gets damaged,
and then they won't give you the 500.
Yeah, it's basically it doesn't work the other way. So
See,
basically,
that's not right in my opinion.
It's basically like you paid for this at the declared, and so that's what we'll take care of you on that. But then you're like, wait, if this car would have like if it would have graded a 9 or a 10, it would be like this or this. It's like, well, you sent it in at a 7, or whatever, so it can work against you too. It's not a perfect science by far.
Who do you okay? The one question I have is PSA has the biggest resale value, and that's a lot of the comments here. Is that's why we go with PSA. That's the biggest advantage they have, which is true. Is hey, I could send this to someone and it'll be worth $200, or I could send it to PSA and it could be worth $450. Even if it's just for you, it's nice to know that, hey, if I do want to get rid of it, if I do want to move it at some point, it's going to be worth 2 to 3 times more than some of these other grading companies, some of the smaller ones especially.
So where there's opportunities, though, I think, just to butt in real quick, is there's a lot of non-sports or if you get into, I would say non-sports is kind of a big opportunity, because there's none graded by PSA a lot of times. You see like Flippin' Steve's got band stickers, like rock band stickers, there's marble cards that I've done, autos and different things where there's no PSA option. So yeah, I've got, it's sitting in an SGC case, or it's sitting in a CSG case or a Beckett case, but you've picked something that is niche, that has a niche collector base that PSA has not graded yet. So it's like, so you can say like, oh, well, PSA would have sold for 3 times more. Well, yeah, but there are no PSA slabs for that. So that's it.
Okay. Yeah.
If you're going with if you're going for Luca cards, it's like if it's regular old stuff that you see all the time, then yeah, you can make the argument about, resale value. But there are a lot of cards. You would think that, like, man, they've graded millions of cards, so they've covered it all. They haven't covered it all. There's a lot of different pockets that have not been graded yet.
But I mean, at what point could they just go, oh, we haven't graded this yet. Now we're accepting this. And now we're accepting it.
They accept it. They just haven't gotten any, or maybe they've gotten a couple of them. I mean, there's just not that many graded of them, so it's not like there's just not a lot of graded options out there, and they might not be for sale. So if we're talking about highly transacted players cards, like high volume stuff, high volume for this space, then yeah, but there's tons of stuff that is not like that.
All right. So my question is, because the resale value is a big deal for a lot of people in a lot of cases. Sure. What would it take for another grading company to close the gap? Is it even possible? Because to me, it's just perception. It's not even like it makes sense. It's just, that's just the way it is. Like, but it doesn't actually say, oh yeah, because PSA graders are known to be the best of all the companies. That's not where it's from. It's just, yeah, that's just kind of how it works right now.
Well, and that's why you see a lot of people are buying CSG 10s, or they're buying BGS 95s, because there was a time, I've heard how many stories, well, you might not have, but I've heard many stories of people that were cracking PSA 10s to send to BGS to try for a 9.5. There was a time, where that was a thing, so yes, PSA, and maybe it never changes to where it's always, PSA is tops, but I think there might be, and again, certain pockets. There's vintage cards that are in SGC cases that are comparable to PSA prices. So it's hard to make broad statements on resale when there's so much nuance to that.
Okay, so you said there was a point when people were cracking PSA 10s to submit to BGS 95s. What did it take for that to shift in a general way? Like, there's going to be a general, like, PSA is generally number one in resale based on picking 10 random cards that are graded cards. What would it take for another company to actually be in line with that? Because I don't understand it. I don't know if anyone can make sense of it. It's just, that's just the way it is. But like, to me, it'd be very easy to have a scale of PSA 10 is, the card is equivalent to usually a BGS 9.5 or a BGS 9.5 with 3 9.5 subgrades, or da 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 da, and it'd just be a very easy calculator or like a scale to compare to. I don't know what it would take for that to happen, for someone to say, this card is equivalent to this one. All the companies have been here for a long time. They're not going to dissolve. And that's why I will pay the same amount for this card as this one based on the slabs, versus same card, this slab is way less than this one.
It's all just kind of, it's dictated by the market.
But my question is, what is it in the market that could even lead to this? So that's why, even in the comment section, if you have any idea of how this happens, I'm curious, because I don't know how PSA is the best resale value. I don't know where it logically makes sense.
It also could just be the number of cards they have out in the market. It's kind of like what you said, like, do they just want to, I mean, think about if they are putting out 1 million plus cards a month, and they've been doing that for, a couple of years. I think total they've graded 40 plus million cards, and second place is like 8 million, so maybe it's just the vast amount of PSA subs that are out there. So the assumption is like, okay, like that's the standard. And look, that's what it is. I mean, there's 40 or 50 million PSA slabs out in the market.
Okay. Yeah, look, obviously it's the most graded, the company that does the most grading, but does the most mean the most valuable for the average card? It doesn't equate that way to me, but maybe that's just some subconscious.
I guess my question is, if it's a card that is, fairly rare or something that you've been looking for, is it, and I'm talking about futuristically, I'm not talking about 2020 stuff. I'm talking about 5 years down the road. Let's say people are kind of like adjusting to this, getting into cards, and it's growing as Fanatics, is planning for, and all of that. Are they more interested in just, oh man, that's that chase card. It just so happens to be sitting in whatever case it is. Maybe it's PSA, maybe it's BGS or whatever, but they're just paying for whatever that is, because if it's rare enough, because think about it, that the whole numbered card thing is not going away anytime soon. So all these new products are going to be out of 5 or out of 10 or out of 25 or whatever it is. And is it going to really be relevant? It's going to be the Joe Burrow, whatever. If it's sitting in whatever slab, people are going to pay. I think where you run into these comparisons is if you're talking about, 2018 Luka Prism rookies, PSA 10 versus, BGS 9.5 or whatever, they're traded all over the place. They're everywhere, so for that, it's easy to make these comparisons. They're widely available. 2020, it was all about Zion base Prism, and if you had a colored one, wow, that was like, if you had a purple or a blue or something, then it was like, wow, that's amazing, but I just think that's going to evolve. I think people are going to figure it out. Maybe they won't, but I think they'll figure it out. And I'm not saying they'll figure it out like, oh, they'll pay more, like these other grading companies will catch up for resale value. PSA probably will always hold really strong resale value. So it's not like, that might never change, but I think it's going to be more about the card than the actual like slab that it's sitting in.
If PSA wasn't number one,
dude, if one of those Homer Simpson cards, like the original Simpsons cards, with like the original art,
the art to Bart,
would you give a damn what slab that was in?
I mean, depends. What's it worth? If one's worth 1,000, another one's worth 4,000. Yeah, I want the one that's worth 4,000, or the one that it's
the same card, it's the same thing.
Yeah, but if I want to ever move it, I'd rather have $4,000 than 1,000. I mean,
sure. And I guess there's nuances like what, was it ran over by a truck and it's sitting in a slab, or is it like mint condition? Fine. Okay. But
yeah,
if they're perfectly, whatever, they look great. One's a 9, one's a 9.5, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
If the stipulation was I have to look at it every day and I could never move it no matter what, then I'd go with the best looking slab for it, period.
Like just aesthetically, the one that you like the best?
If I could never move it, and if I could never move it, period, and I would just be looking at it, I would go with the best looking slab, because I'd want to look at something that looked better than that looked the best as possible.
But I think that's where savvy people are picking up, so if let's just use that card as an example, because I think it's numbered out of 100, those cards.
It maybe a bit more than that, maybe more than 100.
So let's say there's 100 of them. So there's
Okay.
a variety of them in different slabs. For me, if it's a PSA 9 and an SGC 9, but the SGC 9 is half the price or a third of the price, I'm sure as hell buying the SGC 9. And even though like maybe that PSA 9 always sells for a little bit more down the road, it's really the same damn thing, as far as like,
Okay. But you have it raw and you want to grade it. And it's going to be $20 for one company, $25 for another. Then what?
I think that you have to go with personal preference. It has to be with whatever. I mean, and that's going to vary by person. That's going to vary.
And if you don't ever want to move it, then maybe it is the best looking slab. If you're unsure if you want to move it at some point, then maybe you go with the one that has the most value. Or maybe, you see one company it's declining overall, one company that's increasing overall, or maybe you want to get the only one of that grading company. And there was a comment here by Vintage Card Collector around tag, which we can touch on. But maybe you want to have the only tag graded Art to Bart.
There's so much nuance to this. And that's what actually makes it a great conversation, because depending on who you're talking to, it varies widely. Yeah, the tag Black Label BGS sells way more than a PSA 10. Yeah. And sometimes a lot more.
Well, my question was going to be, I don't see PSA marketing themselves like we have to be aggressive in our push, in our offer. Like it's good in the pricing, but it's not like they have to reach all these people because no one knows of PSA. And we have to say, this is why we're better than the competition, because word usually just gets around that, they're common, they're reputable, they've been here for a while. Cards typically sell for more, at least the more popular cards. But I was wondering, would they actually market their resale value in their advertisements or in their marketing push if they were, let's say, the number 3? Like, let's say, for example, there was a company that's the third biggest, not the first, but the third biggest, but their cards were outselling. Their resale value was outselling the competition. How aggressive would they be on that front of marketing themselves? Because I'd be super aggressive.
Oh, well, yeah, of course. I think they would move to number 1. Because I really think that's the big driver in the hobby. Yeah. We can talk about collectors and we're going to be buried with our cards and all that stuff. I hear it all the time. I'm going to be buried with all my slabs. Yeah, no, I think when it comes down to it, the majority of the hobby it's about money. So I think that you've nailed it. With tag, I think it all hinges on, is tag going to be that groundbreaking disruptor company? Are they it? Are they the company that's going to do all this, the disruption? I don't know enough about them. I know I've watched some of Jeremy Lee's stuff on it. I know he works for them now. Wish them all the best. I haven't done anything with tag, and it's not like it's like in 5 years, maybe tag is number 1. Who the hell knows? I mean, nobody knows. So it's just kind of like, it is what it is. To answer Ed Lang, Dustin, are you looking to buy Brady 2002? I'm looking at all the Brady stuff. So yes. Yeah. Yeah, I've just bought a couple of Brady cards over this past week. So I'm just trying to figure out. I really like a couple of his rookie cards. He has a lot of rookie cards. I want to add some more rookies, but I think I had said I really like a lot of the 2012 to 2018 Prism products. And so I've been looking at a lot of, that stuff, like the color match. I bought a 2015 blue that's numbered out of 199. And that was in a PSA 10, and I got it for about 300. The last sale was like 470, or something. So, pricing on a lot of that stuff is starting to move down.
Yeah, well, hopefully those cards go back up in value, because Tom Brady is now focused and will lead the Bucs to the playoffs and hopefully another Super Bowl.
His stuff has just been so expensive, and for good reason. I mean, here's the thing: is part of me, well, I guess this is a lot of me as a Saints fan. I hope that he falls apart and plays another 3 years and plays like crap. And the reason is because I don't think it means a damn thing for his long-term legacy, but I would love for there to be a nice price dip, before he retires. And look, in 10, 15 years, he's going to be like the Jordan for football. That's how I view it. Not now card prices. Nobody knows, obviously, but No one appreciates his great. No one will appreciate how great he was until later on.
Tom Brady is in his Jordan with the Wizards phase, and that might last for another
Yes,
3 years, 4
that's
years.
exactly right.
Like
That's
this is
exactly
all
right.
icing on the cake. And I will say this though, watching him play, it's really okay. He's a chemistry guy. He's not going to move. He's going to get the ball out quick. Who has the most stacked offensive line, best weapons, health, and then does he have chemistry? And if there's another team out there, if he leaves the Bucks after this year, and there's another team that has all the weapons, a great offensive line, and a defense that's formidable that could actually contain the other offense, I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, I'll be your quarterback. And I just need a bunch of snaps with your wide receivers, and there's a good chance that we'll make it deep in the playoffs. And I think he could do that for at least another 3 years if that's his role.
I also don't think, a lot of these young quarterbacks, even though they are protecting QBs these days, a lot of them are running style. Even if you look at like Mahomes, how he's so awesome, but man, he takes some shots, and a lot of these guys do, the Lamar Jacksons, all the QBs coming out, they're kind of these run pass combos like Randall Cunningham. Awesome, fun to watch, love it. But the reality is, are any of these guys going to ever play as long as Brady or even Breeze for that matter? Breeze, these pocket passers that can just hang around forever. I don't know. So here's the thing. People will say like, oh, NFL, all these records are meant to be broken. Okay, well, it'll probably be 20 years before anyone touches Tom Brady's records. So that's a 20-year window where he's number one.
Yeah. And I mean, like we mentioned earlier, they're just the health. They're getting so much better at staying healthy and all the stuff, the therapies and everything now where players can eat better. LeBron James, I think, spends $1 million a year on his body, just all the different things to make sure he's as in tip top shape. And that didn't exist 25 years ago. And now it's only going to get bigger and better. There was a funny meme. I think it's Florida Man on Instagram. He posted a lot of Tom Brady and Giselle memes. It was really funny, but he put one that was like, Giselle took half of the Bucks offense in the settlement. And I'm like, oh, that's totally accurate. But anyway.
Well, and I think that he also, Tom Brady's going to have like his own brand and stuff, his clothing brand and all the stuff he's going to do afterwards. I think kind of like Howden has the shoes, I think Tom Brady is going to, be just fine.
And remember, doesn't he have like a $350 million offer from Fox or
He
ESPN or something?
do that, yeah. If he decides to go that route,
I mean, I think he loves football so much. I can't imagine him stepping away from the game altogether. I would imagine he just goes into broadcasting for a few years, and then maybe, all right, now I want to be an offensive coordinator. And I don't even think he has to be QB coach. I think he could be offensive coordinator from the get-go, and then head coach, and then who knows? But whatever. I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves there.
We'll see.
Anyway, guys, it's been about an hour. We really appreciate you joining us. It's been a pretty slow week in terms of news, but hope you're enjoying the World Series. NHL is underway. Go Lightning. Hopefully they'll come back this year. And yeah, basketball, football.
On the last note, though, so I would not be surprised if Brady plays somewhere else next year.
I wouldn't either.
He's in a contract year. He doesn't have a contract beyond this. He came with Arians. I think they had some, they butted heads a little bit. Now he's really kind of the coach. Sean Payton wants to coach next year. I wouldn't be surprised. Miami and Brady Miami got in trouble with tampering with Sean Payton and Tom Brady. Wouldn't be surprised at all if they end up in the same place somewhere. Yeah. Obviously, I've heard speculation about Sean Payton over with the Chargers, which would make sense with Herbert there. He's gonna want to have a good QB, but then again, like the Chargers aren't going to dump Herbert for Tom Brady. Even though like that would be awesome. I mean, I'm sure they'd love to have Tom Brady. They're not going to dump Herbert.
Not for a young talent. Yeah, I will say this with the whole divorce thing. Tom might really want a change of scenery, just because it really is nice to start anew somewhere else. So, I mean, finish up the year. I'd love to see him back with the Bucks, but I would not be surprised if he's like, I want to play, but this has been a very turbulent time here in Tampa. We had some highs but definitely some recent lows. I want to start a new chapter, and a change of scenery can really help that.
It sounds familiar. You move to Florida, everything falls apart.
Yeah, that's why I moved to California.
Yeah.
Totally worth all the homeless people that try to stab me with syringes. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Please hit that thumbs up. We will see you in a couple weeks with, I think, Warren from Arena Club is set to join us. We'll have to confirm with that, but that's going to be our next guest in 2 weeks' time. So appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of your week, and go Bucks and Bolts and all Tampa teams, and hopefully the Saints will lose.
See ya. See you guys.